and that's it.
That's
you
it.
know, and that's
right.
it. Well, that's not going to cut it every time. You know, a woman in a relationship has to be a partner. So these are all the skills that I had to learn. But again, I told you in the beginning of this, God didn't give me the people; He gave me the skills.
Right.
So what I learned was how to be a good partner, and I knew in order for me to be a good partner, I had to have some stability. I had to have something more than just being cute.
Right.
Because I, for a long time, thought that was, you know.
Tell me about that.
Look, I've been on my shit lately. I've been dropping hits lately. And you know your favorite rapper ain't been going this crazy. I've been taking days off, lawyer fees paid off. Tell little buddy I can't wait until we face off. Thoughts in a new state, packing up my suitcase. Boy, this a marathon, but
all right, Chrissy. So you have taken us on an emotional roller coaster.
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Have to get some tissue. You have to get some tissue. And I know that I should have probably bought a whole box and have it sitting here, but it is what it is. So we talked about the foster care system. And I remember you talking to me about a desire that you've had when it comes to nonprofit organizations. I know you were like the director of homeless shelters and you know about developing these organizations and what's needed in certain states to help the community. But one thing that was really near and dear to your heart was to have something for teens, for young adults, because you mentioned something to the fact that a lot of times they're taken out of homes and put into foster care or put into somewhere temporarily and then put right back into the trauma that causes them to act out, to be put in the detention system. Could you explain that to
Sure.
us?
I think that as a child, I was viewed as the person that was the problem, you know, and it was I was the reaction to the problem, you know, and the problem was the abuse in my home. There was some addiction in my home. There were a lot of things that weren't right in my home, so I was running away from all of it. But the system didn't focus on the problem. What it focused on is the runaway, not the reason why I was running away. And the problem that I had was, for me, and I say it was lucky because when I got into a residential treatment facility, finally, I didn't want to go back. I was safe. I didn't have to worry about sleeping at night and someone touching me. I didn't have to worry about being abused. I was perfectly okay with being in the institution at that time. But I was lucky enough, and I was able to have those feelings of feeling safe there. But there were a lot of girls that I watched run away, and after 6 months get placed right back into the same home that they were running away from. And the concern was never what was going on in the home that these children were running away from. It was more of, this child is a problem because they running away. And so what I always wanted was, I wanted a safe place for teenage girls who are escaping things that they can't talk about. Escaping things that people don't understand that they're going through. And if they're able to take them out of the environment and put them in a new environment that they can thrive. Like for me, for instance, I became a fighter. Everywhere I went, I had beef. Big beef, little beef, it was beef. And so no matter what happened, if you take me out of my neighborhood and you put me in a residential treatment facility, and then after 6 months I've done my time and you put me back into that home in that neighborhood, those problems haven't gone anywhere. You've rehabilitated me and put me back in the same environment. And I think one of the biggest things is we have to change that environment for that child to thrive. Because I was never going to thrive in that home. I was never going to thrive in that neighborhood. I was never going to thrive at all. Only thing I was going to do is go right back to my old habits. Okay? So when it came to time for me to go to court, and I begged the judge to leave me. I don't want to go home. Leave me in this residential facility. I can thrive here. And, you know, at the time, my mother agreed that she didn't want me home, and I was fine to stay. But had she said, no, let her come home, then where would I have been? So I wanted to be able to provide a safe haven for teenagers who need a change of environment,
right,
who need to be taken out of an environment and put in one that's therapeutic for them so that they can thrive, where they can address their own issues and go forward instead of going backwards. And that's a huge issue for a lot of our teens now, because there's no place for them to go to be able to have that rehabilitation and to be able to move forward in life. So they're failing us tremendously because they're being put right back in the environment that failed them in the first place.
Right.
And that was huge for me. And it was the deciding factor as to me being able to have that interaction with that social worker that would change my life forever. And so that is something that, eventually I want to get into. Once I'm settled here, it's something that I want to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So, you said once you're settled here. So, how long have you been in Atlanta?
I've been here for 9 months.
9 months. Okay.
But I came here on not the best circumstances, but I made the best out of them.
Okay.
And so I'm really establishing myself here.
Okay.
And I'm kind of establishing what do I want to do, what direction I want to go in, and I'm kind of getting settled. But one thing that I'm doing the most is enjoying my peace. And you do not know how important peace is until you have it, and then you'll protect it at all costs.
Right.
So now that I'm in such a peaceful place, now that I have that peace, now I can move forward to the things that I'd like to do while I'm here.
Okay. So, we talked about your son, right? And we talked about those things, those challenges. Is that the only child you have?
No, I also have a daughter.
Okay. All right. Tell me about your daughter.
I was a lot better when I had her.
Okay.
I think that for my daughter, when I had my daughter, and I never wanted kids. I never wanted kids because I didn't want them to go through what I went through, and I didn't have anything to give to them. Most children, when they enter the world, they've got a father, they've got grandparents, they've got aunts, uncles, cousins, and all of those things that I just was not able to give to children. So I never wanted children. But I think as a child, I was told so many times that I should have been aborted that I just didn't believe in abortions.
Right.
At the time.
And
so it wasn't an option for me when I got pregnant the first or the second time. So the second time, I was a little older. I had a girl. And my job at that moment was to protect her from everything that I had been through. And it was a different drive for me. It was a different set of standards for me because things were done to me that shouldn't be done to dogs. And I could not see my daughter going through those things.
Right.
So I did everything I can at that moment to better myself, to be able to provide them both with some stability, with a mother they could be proud of. And I didn't want to continue to lean on those traumatic experiences. Because, see, I have a sad story, right? And when you have a sad story, you can tell it to people and people feel so sorry for you. And you almost start to lean on that in life.
Yes.
Like you'll see people who are older adults who are saying, well, when I was younger, but we can't. We got to get past it.
Right.
And what everyone who has a sad story can use it to their advantage, or they can figure out how they're going to get past it.
Right.
And I think it was having my daughter that allowed me to say, all right, this is a sad story. I can probably tell everybody the things that have happened, and everybody would probably be like, damn, that happened to you. But it wasn't what happened to me. It was how I made it better, you know? And I didn't use it as an excuse. So my daughter kind of was the reason for me going to the other side of, things, because honestly, I had become a thief, right? As a child, but and then have people that say, how could you steal? Well, when you don't have any other way, you learn how to do it, and you do it very well. When there wasn't food on the table, there were times where there were days where, we had to fend for ourselves, and we did. And we had a system. We learned how to steal whatever we needed to make it to the next day. And so having my daughter made me want to be here for her. It made me want to change the way that I was living. It made me want to change life. I think that with my son, his father made it so easy for me to not change because he was such a great dad. And then with my daughter, she was all that I had. And I was all that she had. So I knew that now, if I wanted her to not go down the path that I needed to, something had to change. And I think that that's kind of what sparked in me to start making the changes for a better life. I will say that, you know, in the end, when I received my master's degree, I got to receive it in front of both my son and daughter. So it was almost as if, you know, everything that I had been through had finally meant something, you know, that I had done something that meant something. Because when I looked out in that crowd and saw both my daughter and my son standing there watching me receive a master's degree, when they both watched me spend those 96 days in jail, it was probably the best feeling that I had, knowing that I had made them both proud, you know?
Yes.
Made them a proud mom. So that was probably one of the best experiences I had in life.
Wow. I can just picture that. Like, I could just picture your face lighting up, looking out in that crowd and looking at their faces.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me, because there are many people out there that want to know what actionable steps did you take? Like, how did you pull yourself out? What was it that day that you decided to go after something greater? And what was that experience like? How did you do it? And how did you stay consistent and disciplined?
I knew that was my only way out. If I failed, I couldn't call my mom or dad. I couldn't call anybody to help me. If I fail, I fail. And if I don't push forward, I don't go. So I think that I had entered into a relationship where the guy I was dating let me know pretty much that I wasn't shit. I didn't have anything going on. Like, there's so many other women that are way better than you. And so when I started to look at it, I was like, you know what? Damn. You know, he's right. There are a lot of women who have way more to offer than I have to offer. And sometimes as women, we think that all we got to do is be cute. And that's it. That's it. Know, and that's it. Well, that's not going to cut it every time. You know, a woman in a relationship has to be a partner. So these are all the skills that I had to learn. But again, I told you in the beginning of this, God didn't give me the people. He gave me the skills. Right. So what I learned was how to be a good partner. And I knew in order for me to be a good partner, I had to have some stability. I had to have something more than just being cute. Right. Because I, for a long time, thought that was, you know.
Tell me about that checklist. You talk about this menu. Please go down the menu for Law and Order.
There's a menu. So, I feel as if everyone should have a menu. Right. And on this menu should be your attributes. Right. And for me, if you go down the list of attributes that you have or that you should have, the qualities, you should be passing in each of these categories. Right. You don't have to have 100, but you got to be passing. Exactly. And if you're not passing, then you have to figure out how you're going to get a passing grade in this. You know, so let's just say you don't have any compassion. You're not a compassionate person, but compassion is something that you need on this menu, you know, in order to be a good partner to someone. Well, you got to work on that, you know, because what we want, a lot of times what we say is we want a man that has all of these things, and we don't have any of them. So what I've learned is that this menu that I need from a man is the same menu that I want to be able to provide. Excellent. And I want to have a passing grade. Right. And now I am at the point where I feel like I'm passing in all these categories. Okay. Can I do better in some of them? Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember you telling me, well, I don't have, and I'm not here yet. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You got hundreds in other categories. So if we go back to school, that averages out, you know? Yes. You know, of course we want to pass in all of them, but we're going to be a lot stronger in some of them, and that's okay. Right. That's okay. Right. But we want to have a menu of attributes that we are bringing to the table when we come to the table and ask someone else for something. Because you can't ask for a man that's tall, dark, handsome, fit, financially stable, a provider, support, and you're providing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You have to bring some of these things to a table to be a good partner. And one of the things that I love about myself is that I have taken everything that I've been through and flipped it around. And I've learned. I had to go back again. I taught myself how to love. Nobody loved me out of my situation. I researched love, and I researched what it takes to love yourself, what it takes to love other people, what it takes to put yourself first, what it takes to be a partner. And I researched all those things to be a better person, because I didn't get, again, I didn't get any of those people.
Right.
What God gave me was the tools to be able to figure that out and to learn. And so now I'm very well versed on love. I'm very well versed on the things that it takes to be a good person and a good partner.
Right.
And I think that that's just something that I picked up because I wanted to be better. So again, I go back to that relationship that taught me that you will be better, but you're not necessarily going to be better for the person who tried to make you better.
Right.
And you have to learn that. And you got to learn what's okay with you and what's not okay.
Yes.
So just going through that process and learning that has taken me a lifetime, but I'm thankful to learn it because I now can be in a position to where I can be a great partner to someone else. Right. And I can love someone unconditionally now because I've learned how to,
Right.
So that's kind of, my life, like, full circle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about relationships, right? Tell me a little bit about the challenges that you faced in the relationship. I know you said about,
honey.
just thinking, you talked about the menu, like, and initially you was just cute.
Well, it took a long time to get to that menu because I went from having nothing on the menu to feeling like I was passing in every category.
Okay, so tell me what the menu was like before you was passing and what was going on in the relationship with that menu.
Okay. So I feel like when I first got into, I was in a very, very long relationship. Okay. I'm thankful for the relationship. It taught me how to be a better woman, a better mother, a better person. It taught me how to love, and it taught me what I'm not going to accept either. Right. So I think I entered this relationship with absolutely nothing but being cute on the menu and being able to possibly dress nice. That's what I entered into the relationship. And because my mindset then was, that's all it took. I didn't know any better. Again, I had all the tools, but I didn't know how to use them yet.
Yes.
So I think that the relationship was a little bit abusive. But this time, what I did was I learned how to love through it. And I learned that I'm going to stick in this thing so that I can come out a better person. And I stayed in it for a very long time, and I learned everything that there was to learn. And I feel like through that relationship, I knew how to love, but how not to love so long. That's the problem. We know I learned how to love, but no one tells you when you should stop loving someone. No one tells you when it's time to quit. You have to learn those boundaries within yourself to say, okay, I loved you for a long time and it's not being reciprocated. Right. Now what do I do? So we learn how to love, but we don't know when it's time to stop loving. And I think that when it finally hit me, it was like, I've done all I can. And on my menu, I came in with nothing, but I'm leaving this relationship passing in every category. Right. But I'm giving it to a person who can't receive it.
Right.
And that's okay. Because now it's time for me to just move on and take my menu and work on healing myself from this relationship.
Right.
And hopefully, eventually, I'll be able to have this great menu and the menu that someone's looking for.
Exactly.
Like, I need exactly what she has to offer. Right. Right. And so I think I'm now there, but it took me a very long time to get there. Right. But once you have an understanding of yourself and of what you can and cannot deal with, then that menu, is very easily prepared, by you. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the relationship. There's a lot more I could say about it, but I choose not to.
I understand. We don't want to give them too much.
No.
The first interview, okay, because we coming back again for another one. Definitely. Okay, so when you you gone through this relationship, you have increased those percentages on that menu.
Absolutely.
Right? You have made all of these wonderful accomplishments. The best part about it, you said, was your children were there when you were accepting your master's degree. Tell me about a time outside of your children that you impacted someone's life and you didn't really know the depth of what you did, but you received some type of, not necessarily reward, but just they told you.
Well,
what was that?
Let me say that after I finished my master's degree, the first job I landed was I started out as a case manager at a women and children's homeless shelter. Okay. And I quickly advanced from case manager to supervisor to assistant director to director of all the homeless service programs. Okay. So within a few years, I had excelled so fast into a position to where I had full control over these homeless women and children. And in that realm, baby, life hit me in ways that I watched these women come in and out of the shelter with their garbage bags. I watched women lose their children in front of my face. I watched women with addiction. This homeless shelter was an umbrella of all the trauma that I experienced, but God had placed me there because he knew this is where I needed to be. Yes. And one particular, there's several stories that particular. Let me give you my two best ones. Okay. The first one was, I had a young lady come into the shelter. Her baby had to be at least like 4 days old. He was about 4 days old, and she came into my office and she said, I need you to call Child Protective Services. And I said, well, why? And she said, I got this baby. I can't do anything with this baby. I don't know what to do with him. I need to give him up. And I looked at her and I thought about my whole life. And I thought about everything that I had been through and all the mistakes that I made. And I sat with her and I said, listen, this is very traumatizing for you. You're in a shelter. You lost your job. You lost your house. You lost your man. You lost everything that you knew. This is tough for you, and I understand that. But this is what we need to do. We're going to get past this. Give me 30 days. And if you give me 30 days, and in 30 days you haven't made the changes that you need, I will help you. I'll help you find a home for this baby. But I want you to give it a chance. Give him a chance. Yes. And she reluctantly, we talked. I talked her through, coached her through a couple of things that she was experiencing at the time. It was overwhelming. You know, you're living in a homeless shelter with a bunch of women you don't know. It's overwhelming at the time. Yes. Everything you own is again in this garbage bag. So I talked to her. And in 30 days, honey, she had her job back. We had what was called a rapid rehousing program that I got her in, which meant that we could provide her with 12 months of rent. Right. We did it on a progressive model, so it was 3 months of 100%, 70, and then 30. So we slowly weaned her into paying it herself. We were able to get her food, connected with all the services that she needed, connected her to daycare. We connected her to everything that she needed. Right. And when it was time for her to go, it took her maybe about 2 to 3 months. But it was time for her to go. She came into my office and she said, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because I would have given my son up. I would have never given him a chance if you didn't sit with me and have that one conversation that made me feel like I could do it. Yes. And I wished back then someone had had that conversation with me. Yeah. And no one did. So when I was able to intervene in that little girl, that young girl's life, and to this day, she's a Facebook friend of mine. Aww. To this day, I get pictures of her son, who's 7 years old now, who she loves. But could you just imagine being in that position, not knowing where to turn or what to do, and then you don't. So at that moment, I felt like I was in that position that social worker was in for me. And I was able to tell her she could do it. And now I look at her beautiful pictures of her family, her new child, her son, and the one she was going to give away, and they're whole. And I felt like I stopped somebody's life from being like mine, you know? Yes. And that was the most heart-touching story for me, because who knows what would have happened to that child if she let him go in the system like I was, you know? Right. And so for me, that was one of the most profound stories. But there was a story that changed my life in that shelter. As I told you, my mother struggled with an addiction. Right. It's not a secret. And I was a child of an addict. Right. I was a child that things happened to that shouldn't have. And I was an angry child who completely blamed my mother for every wrong thing that happened to me. Right. And when I entered into the shelter, what I became is I have like a sixth sense now. Like I can absolutely see things. When I'm listening to someone's story and when I'm talking to someone, my skill set is so developed that within 30 seconds into a conversation, I can kind of tell where it's going and what has happened to you. Right. Okay. Right. So I saw this mother and daughter, and the daughter was angry. And it wasn't an anger it was a deep-rooted anger, a one that I knew all too well. So when I saw the daughter be angry, I knew why she was angry. She was angry because she felt as if her mother never protected her. She was angry because things happened to her that shouldn't have. And she felt as if her mother had chosen drugs over her. And so when I saw the anger, I knew the story of this family before they even sat in my chair. But I needed to talk to them because I needed them to sit down and hear what I had to say. So I sat them down and I said, I want to say to you, because I didn't want the mother to feel as if the daughter had told me anything, because I never had a conversation with either of these two people, but I knew the anger when I saw it. And I said, your daughter doesn't know how to tell you, so I will. Your daughter is very angry with you. She feels as if you didn't protect her from the things. And when I saw the tears roll down both of their faces, I knew that I knew exactly what was going on. So I was able to talk for that daughter without even talking to that daughter. And when I talked to the mother, that mother, it was almost as if God sent that mother to speak to me through my mother. And it wasn't until then that I had a full understanding of addiction. Because at that moment, I didn't want to work with addicts. I didn't want anything to do with them. I felt like the reason that my life was the way it was is because my mother chose drugs over me. And that lady said to me, she said, you think I want to do drugs? I didn't choose this. It chose me. And I don't know how to stop. It's a disease. I can't get past it. And every time I look at my daughter and she's angry, it makes me want to get high again. And every time I fail her, I want to get high again. You think this is something that I chose? Every time I fail, the only thing I know how to do is get high so I can forget. And at that moment, it made me realize this wasn't about me. What did my mother go through that made her do this? What did she go through that put her in a position to want to get high and remain high? What was she going through that she wanted to forget? It wasn't about me anymore. And when that lady had that discussion with me in front of her daughter, and that their life came full circle in front of them, and they could understand where they were, it was almost if, and at this point my mother had already passed away. It was almost as if God wanted me to hear this, because I couldn't move forward with myself or in my career until I knew that I couldn't be scared of people with addiction. I couldn't be biased to them, that I needed to help them just like I needed to help anyone else. And it wasn't until I sat in front of those two people that I understood I couldn't be biased, because I came in very upset with that mother, because I knew what this daughter was going through. I knew why she was angry, but I didn't know the mother's side. And when I learned her side, it built a softness in my heart that I wished that I could have that conversation with my mother to say, I forgive you, because I don't know what she went through. I don't have a clue. All I know is how it affected me. And I didn't care what she went through, because I was just worried about how it affected me. But for someone who is struggling with an addiction, there's a reason. There's something behind it. It's something they're running from. It's something they're suffering from. And we have to understand that. We don't have to enable them, but we gotta be understanding to that. And we have to do everything we can to figure out, whether it's through therapy or through our family circle, how to move this person forward. So when I see women who have conquered this addiction, I'm so proud of them, because I know how much it had to take for them to get past it. And that moment was the moment that I was able to take my job and know that I was no longer scared of women with addiction. I was no longer scared of clients with addiction. I could handle it like I could handle any other client, because now I understood. And it wasn't until then that I understood that my mother was going through something on her own. It wasn't about me. She didn't hate me. It wasn't personal. She was fighting some other demons of her own. You know? And it was that moment that I was able to understand. And throughout, my career, I've had a lot of people who have, given me letters of thank you, letters of, conversations that I've had, and ways that I've encouraged them and empowered them. And that's the best feeling. And that's how I knew it was my career choice, because I'm able to somehow God has given me the tools
Yes.
and the gift to be able to speak life into people through a conversation and to let them know that this is a circumstance and you can make it out. And I'm a witness, I'm a testimony to that. So sometimes it's really good, especially for women like us, to look at another woman who's been through something that we've been through, come out of it, and been strong. You know, a lot of people will look at me or look at some of the things I have and be like, she don't know shit. Or she don't know. But when you hear the story behind it, then you can only be proud of the things that I've accomplished that you didn't even know about.
Right.
You think this closet is about a closet?
Yes.
No, baby, this is about me not living the life of garbage bags anymore.
That's right.
This has nothing to do with Louis Vuitton.
Right.
This is about me making it. I made it.
Right.
I made it out. And there were several times that I could have died, and I made it. And so that's just my triumph, you know.
Right.
And that's the reason why, you know, the career path I chose is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You are definitely an inspiration, because I tell you that when I first met you again as an adult, right, because it had been some years, a long, long time since we had seen each other. So that, man, this has been an emotional roller coaster for me. I'm like crying my eyes out. I thought I wasn't going to cry anymore, but here I go. But I do want to know, why did you decide to sit down and do this interview with me?
I feel like it's extremely important for women who are hiding things, who are struggling with things that they can't talk about, who are, there's just so many things of, it's therapy, it's abuse, it's everything that we bottle inside because we're told not to talk about it.
Right.
You can't talk about that. You can't tell anybody that you've been through that. Well, you have to.
Right.
Because if you don't, you bottle it in and you become angry. You begin to not be able to live at your capacity because you're holding in so many things.
Right.
And therapy is so important for you to be able, not because people want to know your business, because people are experts in listening to you and giving you the tools that you need to get through the things that you have. And there's so many things that hold us down and we don't even realize. Like, how many people can you sit and say you've lost or have died, within your lifetime tragically, whether they were shot or killed, and we have normalized that as people. My daughter, who's 19 years old, she loses friends all the time. And now it's become so accustomed to closing a t-shirt and we're done with it.
Yeah.
That's traumatic. We don't lose friends at young ages. We lose friends older in life.
Yes.
And trauma has become so normalized that we think it's okay. We think it's okay to sit in our houses and hear gunshots.
Right.
It's not normal.
Yeah.
We think that, not being able to sit down, have a conversation and compromise with people is normal. It's not. Healthy relationships are what's normal. But we don't have that many healthy relationships to even go off of, to build them and to mimic them. Right. And we have to introduce those healthy relationships back into our household so that our children know what it's like. I grew up around abuse and I chose abuse because it's what I knew.
Yes.
And now that I've taught myself what a healthy relationship looked like, I ain't accepting nothing less. That's so right. This menu that I have,
that's right.
You match this menu or you have to go.
That's right.
Okay. Goodbye. Because now I've learned my worth.
Yes.
But it took me a lifetime to learn it. And I think it's important that people know that through therapy, addressing our trauma, talking about our childhood, abandonment issues, all of those things are real. And they're built within us, and it affects how we have future relationships with people. And not just friendships. Any type of relationship it will deteriorate because of the person that we are, and we're bringing our childhood traumas into our relationships. And we need to learn that therapy is how we're going to get rid of them so that we can move on and have healthy relationships. Right. Because that should be the goal. There's so many people I know that are in toxic relationships, but they're comfortable in them because it's the norm. Oh, your man cheats? That's what's supposed to happen. Oh, everybody argues. Everybody fights. everybody goes to jail. That's what everybody does, because now we've normalized so many things.
Right.
And, it was important for me to be able to get out some of the things. And there's so many things I held back to protect other people that, I would love to say. But I think you'll get the gist of what has happened in my life and how difficult it was and a process it was to move forward. But I'm glad that I'm here. And I'm glad that I've moved forward and been able to move forward with my life. Yes. Even though my life was as traumatic as it comes as a child.
Yes, it was.
I think that that's extremely important. It's extremely important that if we missed out on that we take care of our children and we let them know that, all right, maybe they need to do some therapy. Maybe it's going to be helpful. But it's such a stigma in our community because we ain't telling people our business. That's the first thing your mother say. Don't tell nothing that went on in this household, And that's what hurts us the most, is that we're not addressing those issues.
And what's you reminded me, I love my TD Jakes and Sarah, and I listen to that all the time. But one thing that he was saying, with not the last time, the one before that, when he talked about being built for expansion, he was saying that our parents can only teach us what they know, and they, in one sense, they teach us for a generation that or an experience that we would never have in our generation. They didn't talk about therapy or going to therapy or telling about your business because they didn't have the same challenges that we face. There's not, you don't have 3,000 friends. Their friend was their friend next door. They didn't have to worry about a like or a post or somebody tearing them down from all the way across the country. And because we have introduced so many people into our lives with social media, with, just the way people communicate now, that is why therapy is so necessary, because you have different people speaking things on you and in your life, and it's hard to unread what you read. It's hard to unhear what you heard, which is why you have to get that stuff out with therapy. And like when he said that, I was like, that is so true. Like, your parents would never thought that it would be this way. We're going into the metaverse. You know what I'm saying? Augmented reality, all this artificial intelligence. Like, my parents wouldn't have taught me, how to prepare for that. Shoot, when I was doing too much on a computer, my mom was like, stop, don't do the special ops gonna come get everybody, So, that was so important. Therapy is definitely necessary. And like I said, I'm going to be booking my session soon. Yes. Now, the podcast is called Law in No Order, Special Survivors Unit. So law represents what it is, and it's also a metaphor. So what is law for your life now?
Law for my life now is peace. That is the law in this stage. It's peace or it's nothing. Yes. And anybody who doesn't bring peace into my life, any type of interruption, they have to go. That's the law in my household, and it's the law in my life. And unfortunately, I had to prepare myself for anybody can go. Right. And they can. Because at this time, I've been through so much through my life that I only want to be around love. That's right. Okay? Right. Now that I know what it is, now I know how to give it, I only want to receive it. So that's the law in my life now, is that I will not entertain anything that's not peaceful. Anything that disrupts my aura in any way, it has to go. Right. And that means anybody. Right. Anybody. Okay. Anybody.
Anybody can get it. Anybody. Okay, so Special Survivors Unit. What is a survival mechanism for your life?
Prayer is the first one.
Prayer, yes.
Because I know for a fact, like, there's no way possible that God has not intervened in my life several times. So prayer is the first one. But secondly is being okay with where you are, starting where you are. And that's so important because now with social media, we're all concerned about where everyone else is. Yes. And I'm here, but such and such is my age, but they have all of these things. Be okay with where you are, because nobody knows what it took for you to get there. Yeah. And when you get there, you go at your own pace, on your own time. Right. Everybody sees things different. Everyone perceives. You can have a household full of children, and if you go to talk about what has happened in that household, every single person will have a different perception of how they saw it. Right. Understand that. understand that your perception is your perception, and it's okay that you've perceived it. Now, what do you do after that? Right. One of the biggest things that I tell people, it's not, you don't ask people, you don't ask them what happened to them, or you don't ask them you don't ask them, I can't remember how this goes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's not what did you do, it's what happened to you. Right. You know, because we always think of this. You got sentenced to 25 years. It's not what you did. What happened to you? Right. You know? Now, what happened to you after that? Because what you did is done. Right. You can't fix it. You can't fix it.
Sure can't change it.
Can't change it. You can't fix it. It's done. It's done. But what happened to you now? And what's the outcome of that, and how can you change it? Right. That's what needs to work. You're going to get into arguments. You're going to get into things with people. How do you correct it? Right. You know, and you have to remember that, because it's not what you do, it's how you handle it. Right. And those are the things that, you know, you just got to remember and know that that's what's going to get you through life and get a little further.
Yes. Thank you so much for sitting down and having this interview with me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
We learned so much about you, just about social work, just about the way the foster care system has ran, and the way it could run better, some of the great things that you have in store. Can you please let us know how someone can get in contact with you as far as to do interior design? How does that work? Are you taking
clients? I am. Okay. I am taking clients, and I'm also taking clients for therapy sessions. Okay, awesome. I really, really am. I pride myself in working with teenage girls. Okay. Only because I feel like I have become an expert in it because of my past, my studies, and the work that I've done. I've received a lot of community awards for my therapeutic skills, and I feel like I'm very well versed in assisting them in moving forward in their life. So if anyone is looking for a therapist for their daughter, you can reach me at my Instagram, and that is Chrissy Dior, and that's ChrissysYDior 1026. That's the best way to reach me.
Okay, and that link will be at the bottom, so you'll be able to click on that and get all of her information. What about the interior design? So they can reach you.
They can reach me on either for that.
For both, okay? For both. Awesome. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to sitting down and talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
I'm not the only one that wish life had a refund. I'm not dwelling on past things, but it's hard to get past things. Hip hop's mind, rebirth to the past kings. God. Which God? That is.